Welcome to the Drilling Millions podcast, presented by Sage Dental Partners.
Thanks again for coming on the podcast. Really appreciate it. Super excited for this. We're going to start with corporate dentistry is, taking over dentistry in a lot of ways. And I think a lot of people, especially dentists that aren't in the network, are a little bit concerned about it or just unsure, unfamiliar with the concept. So sort of from the dentist perspective, let's sort of start by talking about why they should, join the 123 network.
Well, first of all, I don't think corporate dentistry is going to take over the world. It really comes down to dentists being comfortable doing what they're doing. And, the success of our business is based on patient care. It doesn't matter if there's a Safeway or Loblaws, a superstore, they all coexist. And it's going to be the same with dentistry. I think if you're a good dentist, you provide great care and you communicate well with your patients. There's plenty of patients out there that want that. And really, to me, I don't like the term corporate dentistry, but yes, we're kind of stuck with that. Really, for us, we kind of started on this journey as sort of a hybrid. So my personal journey was formed by partnerships. I partnered with dentists when I graduated dental school. I had 2 partners in one office. We then bought 5 offices over 5 years. And that's kind of how I grew. And it wasn't a plan. I always get that question, did you plan this? So the answer is no. And then from there, what I learned quickly was dentists didn't like doing a lot of the stuff that I was pretty good at. So I kind of created a system where the dentist got to do dentistry and we took care of the rest. And what is the rest? Well, it's everything from answering an alarm at the office in the middle of the night to, taking care of financing, taking care of building clinics, everything. And that kind of grew on its own. It grew by referrals. It grew by keeping people happy. Ultimately, the success of the model is really based on the basics, which is patient care. Right. I found anytime I built a clinic and I didn't quite have a partner, they weren't successful. If I always had a partner, the clinics were successful. And why is that? Because patient care was always optimum when somebody had some skin in the game and they cared and it was their office too. So that's kind of how, the background of how this started. And for me, I don't think corporate dentistry is for everyone. I don't think it's the be all end all. I think it's an option for people. In general, smaller clinics do really, really well on their own. And there's a lot of people that like to have that little clinic do their thing. And those are going to continue to trade on the market with brokers and dentists are going to buy them. We are more in that larger business scale where the thing has grown into a monster. And dentists are kind of going, holy moly, I spend all day looking after stuff and I'm not getting to do dentistry anymore. And that a lot of times happened because that's what they liked, or sometimes it happened just by accident, like it happened for me. So those people need help. They've got a big business. They have 30, 40 employees. The income coming in on a monthly basis is significant, anywhere from, 300,000-400,000. We have clinics that do $1 million a month. It's a $12 million business. It's not made for a single operator. It's a big business, right? And, at the level of, $100,000 to $200,000 a month, I think it's very comfortable for a single operator to manage with a couple of associates. But really, the smaller clinics is not somewhere where we're going to be involved in. It's mostly these large businesses where people need help. And what we can help with is simple. We have processes, we have, managers that can come in and help with some of the things, like if you need staff, if you need equipment, if you need different things, we can remove that burden. But again, it's not for everyone. I still think everything is going to coexist in the future. I don't think corporate dentistry is going to take over. The real journey that started for 123 was, I built this partnership model based on dentists owning clinics with me, and it was successful. I got approached by Dental Corp several times during this journey, and Graham Rosenberg, the CEO of Dental Corp. I believe he's the chairman now, and Guy is the president. And I met with him several times, and he's a guy that comes from private equity. He's not a dentist, and his opinion was, I need to own the whole thing. I am not interested in having partners. And I said, well, I've always said, and I always still will say, that having partners at clinics is the best thing for patients. When you get out there and start working, you'll realize as an associate, you can go in at 9 and finish at 5, and you close the door and you're gone. At some point, you're going to want your own clinic, which is obviously where the trajectory will lead you. And you'll leave that associate position, and you're going to have dental work that may not work out perfectly, but who's going to look after it? It's got to be the owner. It's got to be somebody, right, that looks after that patient, whether the bite's off or, somebody's not happy with the color in the future, and anything. And what you find is, if it's just all associates, nobody's going to take responsibility. Nobody's going to say, yeah, I will help you, because everybody's like, well, I'm not going to get paid. The guy's already been paid and he's gone, and I don't want to touch this thing. It's, whereas when you have an owner, they're obligated. They feel like they have to fix it, and patient care is very important. That doesn't mean associates don't have good patient care. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to say that. All I'm saying is there's a different commitment from an associate than there is from an owner. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that you're still going to be there as an owner. As an associate, you may be somewhere else. But really, that was the base of launch of 123. I met Ali Bazorgzad, who was one of the people that helped us launch this entity here. And he worked at Sinclair Dental, and he saw Dental Corp was doing these things, and he saw what we were doing as a partnership model, and he said, you should do this across the country. And I said, I don't want to. I'm happy. I'm content. And he said, no, it's for the industry. We can, work together and make sure dentists have ownership in the future. And so, with his push, we launched something called the Canadian Dental Company. There's only a few issues of oral health, which you'll see. There was this ad for the Canadian Dental Company. And, sure enough, Graham from Dental Corp called right away. He goes, what are you guys doing? Like, we can work together. And so we met with him one more time, went through the same scenario, discussed options, didn't like the idea of ownership still. And so, we ended up meeting some other guys. They're known another private equity group, but they weren't really private equity, but it was a couple guys that had started something called Vibrant Equity. Ultimately, the whole business really was backed by some of the clinics I've ended in early, and my personal guarantees with the banks. And that's how we started, right? But the good thing with the Vibrant Equity guys were they were the Bay Street people, in the sense that they knew the system, how to work with the banks and do everything. And within that system, we created a model where we actually have ownership at the clinic level for dentists. So our goal is always and will be to make sure we have dentists owning clinics with us. And the ownership is smaller than my original model, which was always 50-50, right? I never owned 51%. I wasn't, driven by having control. My partners and I get along really well. I look after them, they look after me. So I never had this desire to have a control over anything. And being 50-50 always made it feel like everybody's got the same skin in the game. When we get to the corporate side, the clinics I talk about, they're significantly larger. These are clinics generally that brokers can't sell, because there isn't a single dentist that can buy them. It's very expensive. And the cash flow is such that, owning 20 to 30% is still a significant amount of extra money, we'll call it. So, you can make your money as an associate, and usually in these types of clinics, you can make anywhere from $200,000 to $400,000 owning 20-30% of a clinic with us. The nice thing is you have us, right? So if something's not working well, or you need help with something, we're always going to be there to back you up. The negative part is, again, people would always like to have more ownership, right? People think they should have 50%. Unfortunately, in the business that we have, and in order to get the funding we have from private equity, we need to control the business, and 50-50 just doesn't work. So we have a very flexible model. We don't have a, it's got to be 20% or it's got to be 30%. It's unique. We customize it for the person that we're working with. That's going to be our partner. We do also have a separate or a different model with specialists, right? Specialists, as you know, have gone to school for a lot longer. There's fewer of them. And as an entity, we always want to protect our shareholders, right? So we generally have a larger ownership stake for specialists because we want them to be engaged even more. And that's usually up to anywhere from 40 to 35%. So that model, again, was just created to make sure, again, patient care is first and foremost. We look after the dentist can do dentistry. Our job is to look after everything else.
Right.
One of the things I always see people talking about or asking is, oh, you guys save a ton of money on sundries or when you're buying because you're so big. Yeah, we do have savings, guys. It's natural, right? You buy one thing or you buy 100, your price is going to be different. But the reality is in any dental business, generally the sundries is around 6%. And yeah, we may be getting down to 4%, right? And it is 2% savings, but that's not going to give us the edge over somebody else. It's not going to make us better than our dentist down the street that's a solo practitioner that owns an office. People need to stop worrying about that stuff. It's very minute and very minor. Even when we're having discussions with future partners, that's the first thing. Oh, you're going to save us a lot of money. Yeah, we are going to save you some money, but it's not going to change your world. Sundries are sundries. We have negotiated deals with different partners, but we don't force anybody to use any product. Everybody's allowed to use the same product, whatever they pick and choose. Obviously, they get incentivized when they see lower prices to look at those products. When it comes to labs, it's the same thing. We don't tell people which lab to use. We don't have a deal with a lab. People are free to use whatever they want. So that's how the business got created. It was by fluke, right? Graduated from school, worked with a bunch of guys, figured out that I could do something that they didn't like doing. Met Ali at Sinclair. He said, let's do this. By that time, I had 70 clinics in partnership. So it wasn't like we were small, but I said, okay, but I don't want to do all the work. He said, I'll do a lot of the heavy lifting. So we worked together. And here we are today, right? We just announced a merger with Ultima Dental and La Pointe. So, probably by the end of the year, we'll be in the over 400 clinics, right? Probably closer to 450 with the merger and the pipeline. We've created a relationship with Heartland Dental. They are one of the good groups we feel out in the US. It's a relationship that, basically we're going to help each other develop best practices. It's not a one-way street. We're going to work with them. They're going to work with us. They have an investment in 123 and 123 has an investment in them. And, fortunately, we also partnered with KKR, which is one of the largest private equity groups in the world. And, again, it wasn't to do with they're the largest private equity group in the world. It was actually to do with the people we met. They're good people. Same with Heartland. They're like us. They care about patients. They want to make sure things are done well. And the other thing that, you're going to see on top of mind for all three of these entities, which is KKR, Heartland, and ourselves, is our staff. We value our people. We are definitely wanting to make sure they're looked after in every instance possible. It's not our goal to reduce costs by, cutting wages or anything like that. I think, if you and your colleagues are aware, dentistry is, the staffing is in high demand. The best thing you can do for your staff is to make sure they're happy. If people are leaving, money is one reason to leave, but it's not always the reason. People like to think that, but it's not always the reason. It's really, really important for us as management, and they know from my leadership that every day they need to check in on their staff and make sure that, we're delivering on the promises we've made and make sure that, they are getting what they need from us to be successful, right? So, yeah, I think that kind of answers your first question. But to me, corporate dentistry is not going to take over dentistry. I think There's lots out there for everybody. I can tell you as a group, we are committed to help general dentists that are on their own. We're not looking to, make life difficult for anybody else. We're happy to be part of the dental community. It's not in our nature to be competitive. We're just looking to do our business the way we do, but we're always going to be giving somebody a helping hand. And I can tell you, historically, as a company, even during the pandemic, we've helped other clinics. If we've had PPE, we've shared. If we had something that made sense, the knowledge wise, we would share that with the general dentist. We're not looking to make this just about us. We're part of that dental community.